It's really a bummer we can't really have a tournament or a PGA event here.
It may happen sometime.
You think so?
Yeah, we've talked to some
Okay.
people before. It matter of time. The PGA Tour is obviously locked into Torrey Pines, and as you're probably aware, the whole tour is kind of in a shakeup period right now with Live Golf, and I'm hoping that Torrey Pines will end up being one of the premier events. They're going to basically, the PGA Tour is going to put more money into about 12 events. They announced like 6 of them already,
Okay.
and Torrey wasn't one of them. But they're going to announce probably in the next 60 days what the other 6 are, and hopefully Torrey will be one of them, because if they aren't, you might not get as good a field as they have in the past. But obviously it has a rich tradition with Tiger Woods there, even though he's getting to a point where he might not be playing, every year, Torrey Pines is kind of cemented as one of the premier tournaments on tour.
Yeah, I mean, and just being Torrey Pines, just being on the water like that, it's obviously great weather, beautiful scenery as well,
Yeah,
So
when you've got those gliders and paragliders going up over the golf course when they're putting it on TV, I don't think there's another event in the world like it. With that Black's Beach below it and the air that comes up off the cliff and those guys hovering around above the golf course, it's pretty spectacular.
Yeah, I think just based on what I know, I feel like it'd be really difficult to have a tournament here just because there's lack of parking and maybe isn't not as much of like a walkway for people on certain holes.
Yeah.
Can you speak on that at all?
Well, what we've explored in the past is kind of a limited field event where, when you look at some of those type of events, they actually let the fans walk in the fairways and follow the people. If you didn't have 120 people, if you had 16 or 8 or 24 players and it was a limited field event, you might be able to allow them to kind of follow the players. They do that at like the Walker Cup and some of those events.
Like every day?
Yeah. So it's even a better fan experience.
Oh, yeah.
And the other thing that most people don't realize, as long as you didn't have 50,000 people out there, because our golf course is kind of like a U-shaped where you have the rough is elevated, you'd have good viewing over the fans in front of you to watch the people playing. Mm-hmm. The problem at Torrey Pines is if you're 4 or 5 deep behind people and the course is so flat, you can't see over the people in front of you.
Yeah.
And so I would actually argue, as long as there's not too many people, we'd have a really good, viewing spot to watch a lot of holes.
Yeah, I think that'd be a really cool thing. Like you said, it'd have to be more of a limited group of people that would be able to come out. I think you guys did like a year or two ago. You guys did like a little, follow along of, I think it was like John Rahm and a few other guys. I think it was exclusively for the members.
Yep.
So, I mean, how many people was that? Like 50 guys following them?
So what we did is a fundraiser for the employees here right after we shut down for COVID.
Okay.
And so it was basically a fundraiser. And so we had about 50. They played 54 holes. That was actually probably one of the funnest days of my career, to watch Xander and Rahm and Charlie Hoffman and Emiliano Grillo. And then actually Christy Kerr showed up for a couple rounds as well. And we followed them in carts, and everybody paid like a VIP price to follow one of the 18 holes. And so, people got to interact with them. I moved a couple of the tee boxes up so that they could try to drive the green on like number 5. And they were kind of gambling, but not really gambling. But it was a lot of fun. And believe it or not, John Rahm in 54 holes, I think he had 25 birdies.
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, how cool is that experience for you? I mean, you're getting like the all access, VIP, and, every time these guys come out, how cool is that for you?
Well, it's really interesting as a sports nut. My whole life I've been a sports nut, and I think about the fact that I played football and basketball and baseball when I was in high school, and baseball being one of my favorite games. I mean, I would not even fathom getting to go take batting practice near Cal Ripken or Ken Griffey Jr. or somebody like that. And the fact that you could be at a driving range and watch John Rahm or Xander, who are top 10 players in the world, warm up and watch them play, inside the ropes. It's unheard of in other sports. You go to a Dodger game and you watch the Dodgers, but you're, 100 yards away from the players. There's no interaction. You don't get to talk to them. And I think that's truly what makes golf so great, is because, everybody that gets to a high level of golf has come through, junior golf, and they're probably, been around a lot of adults when they were kids, and they're very respectful, and they just, it's the whole, kind of, golf is one of those games where everybody's just, excited to be out there, be around other people, and they don't really judge other people, because golf, you can go out and play golf with, you could be a scratch golfer, or you could be an 18 handicap, and if you're really a true golfer, you'll play with anybody. Yeah. And so I think they're a little more thankful of the fans than some sports. And they're just, they're excited to be out there, playing golf.
Yeah. That's another cool thing, is that, they can be any age too.
Yeah.
It's not that it's not an athletic sport, but it's just, it's more of a mentality and, knowledge of the game, because I go and play with guys that, may not hit it very far, but, they'll use a 5-iron in a certain situation and hit it a certain way and roll it up to the green that way, versus if I were to try and hit a 9-iron from there and, try and land it directly on the green. It's just, there's a lot of things like that I think give people an edge.
Yeah. It's truly the only game. I mean, the new game is pickleball, and it's kind of one of those games where it's kind of similar. You don't really have to be, young, fit to play pickleball. So it's kind of, I think that's why it's picking up right now. It's kind of like golf. You could play with your mom, or you could play with your, anybody.
Yeah.
And so obviously there's different levels of pickleball, but it's kind of one of those games where you just show up, and people are showing up to leagues, and they don't have to prearrange, their matches. They just show up at a certain time, and golf's like that. A lot of country clubs, you'll have what's called choose ups, where you show up on Saturday morning at 9:00, and the pro will just pair you with some other people, and you get to meet new people, and next thing you know, you're friends with these people, and you might go on a golf trip with them. And, so there's just not a lot of sports like that.
Yeah.
And tennis was kind of one of those, but tennis is a little bit more harder on the body, and you can't just be a once in a while tennis player and just play with anybody, because, there's a lot of good tennis players compared to the not so good tennis players.
Right.
So that's what's great about golf. And, you get to meet so many people. For me, it's just exciting to, sometimes see a little, 6-year-old that's just hitting a ball for the first time, and then see somebody that's 80 years old that, they're still staying athletic enough to play golf, and they're enjoying it. And, I love the stories when somebody gets to an age where they actually shoot their age. I mean, that's an incredible feat if you think about it.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's a weird one.
Yeah. I mean, think about it. Golf's like the coolest thing everybody would say would probably be a hole-in-one.
Yeah.
You don't have to be a good golfer to make a hole-in-one. It's almost like a random occurrence.
Right.
I know people that have never had one, and they're, single-digit handicaps, and then you've got people that aren't very good that go out there in the first year, make a hole-in-one.
Yeah.
So.
That's funny. Yeah, it must be interesting. I mean, we were touching on the PGA players that you see, but then there's also a different group of people that you see that come up here and enjoy golf as well. Like, some celebrities like Steve Harvey and Steph Curry, a few other guys I've seen up here. I mean, Phil obviously in the PGA, but there were a few other guys that I can't think of right now.
I became close with the actor James Caan.
Yeah,
your dad as well, and he was such a nice guy. I learned a lot from him about he was always one of those. He had a deal where he'd try to play kind of a prank on you, and try to, make a joke about you or something. And if you didn't laugh, he's like, I'm not going to want to be friends with that guy. If he can't laugh at himself, I don't want to hang with that guy.
Yeah.
And I thought it was pretty funny. But he was a great. He unfortunately passed away a few months ago. His health got, the best of him. He was funny. He used to do rodeo and ride motorcycles and do all this stuff, and he just beat the heck out of his body. And he loved golf, but at the end he had so many back surgeries and shoulder surgeries, and I mean he was like every other month he had some surgery because he was just like a broken down, horse or something like that. He was a great guy.
Yeah, great guy. I remember playing a few years ago with him, playing a few holes with him and my dad, and such a nice guy. And I mean, geez, such a character.
Yeah. I mean, he had over 100 movies.
That's amazing.
Can you imagine? Like, if you did like 5 movies, you'd think you'd arrived. I mean, he did over like 120 movies or something like that.
Yeah.
And the funniest was when you go out with him, he's from, The Godfather is kind of like his premiere one. But, I loved Misery. And he always talked about the one he did with, I'm trying to think of her name, but he did this one movie he always thought was his best. But then we'd be out and
what was the movie called?
I can't think of the name of it. But the funniest is you'd be out and they'd say, "Oh, you're the guy from Elf."
Yeah.
He didn't like that. He didn't want to be known as his movie that he was famous for was Elf.
Goofy.
The dad in Elf.
That's funny, man. I know, it's cool. I mean, it's just what a representation of the journey, like him being in The Godfather to him being in, such a big movie like Elf, like completely different times. I mean, probably 30-year difference between the two, but that just goes to show how great of an actor he was.
Yeah. And he came from the Bronx. He went to Michigan State. He actually tried to play football. He always joked about how skinny he was, and he used to have to tape his socks up so they wouldn't fall down on his ankles. And he's so funny. Yeah. And but he was the best. But these people, they all come together because of golf. Golf is like the the puzzle that you can never solve. You got it for like a day, and then the next day you show up and you can't figure out why you can't do it again. And it just attracts people, and there's some statistics that are starting to come out, about the National Golf Foundation about how much COVID has helped golf. And it was interesting. I read something this morning that the age group from, I think it was 30 to 45, their stress relief is 48%. Highest age group of the reason they're playing is for stress relief. Wow. They're using golf, and that's what I've always said. You go out to a golf course, it's the most beautiful property that you're ever going to go to. Look at Torrey Pines, look at Pebble Beach. It's not a housing development. It's just, it's in a preserve. It's beautiful. You go around this golf course. It's the number one thing people say when they get off the course. I listen to them from my office, is they all talk about how beautiful it was.
Yeah.
What better way to get some stress out than to go spend it out in nature and for 4 hours.
It's such a tranquil experience, just being out there. I mean, because you don't really get that as much nowadays. A lot of people are indoors a lot, on technology. So to go outside and spend usually about 4 hours to play 18 holes, it's kind of a different experience.
Yeah, it's great. It's evolving too. Some people are playing music in their carts, and it's getting less and less, like formal. People are starting to have more, fun, so to speak. But you'll go to some courses that's a little bit more traditional. But, ideally for me, I get a blend. I like to go on trips with people, and I like to play a couple times a year at a course with a caddy, walking a golf course. Cell phones might even be banned in the clubhouse where you can't even use your phone. But that's if I had to do that every single round of golf, I think you wouldn't get the full gamut. Because you wouldn't get to hang out with everybody, because not everybody gets to go to a place like Augusta or Pine Valley or LA Country Club or something like that, where you're required to take a caddy. when you play golf. But it really is one of the best experiences when you do walk the game, versus riding a cart. It even brings you more to that whole nature thing and that experience. And to interact with a caddy for 4 hours where he's trying to help you pick what club to play. And by the third or fourth hole, he's either, walking to the tee with your 3-wood or driver because he already knows what club you should be hitting off the tee. Yeah. I mean, that's a hard thing to beat.
It definitely gives you an edge.
Yeah. And it's just, it's hard to beat that experience.
Yeah.
I tell people it's a lot better than a rectangle tennis court, you know?
Yeah, one of the most favorite courses I have here is Pechanga.
Yeah,
it's really cool because it's got the mountains. You get up elevated, and you see a lot of trees, a lot of canyons, things like that. So it's a beautiful course.
Yeah, I mean, there's basically probably in Southern California, I'm guessing 20 to 25 courses that were all built right in the late 90s. Pechanga. In our town, Santa Luz, Bridges, Crosby, ourselves, we were all built basically at the same time. We all opened about 1999. They're all in the hills. They all have got, beautiful bunkering. Pechanga probably opened around the same time. And it's really cool because ultimately they've used the landscape, but then they also used modern technology with bulldozers to move the dirt around to kind of give it even the final touches.
You mean like they're using bulldozers for like to level out fairways and stuff?
Yeah, for course construction. Because ultimately they would be too extreme if they didn't kind of soften some of the holes. And what I love about Fazio, which is our architect, is we've got all these hills around here, but none of our holes really feel that extreme where you're on the fairway, where you feel like you're on like an 8-degree slope hitting like this on a hill.
Right.
Everything's pretty mellow, couple degrees of slope, and there's a couple courses up in Carmel. There's one in particular that every hole, it feels like you're like this when you're hitting the ball. And after I played it, I'm like, they kind of missed it on this one, when they were building it.
Okay.